preach on faithfulness tonight. And I thought about it and prayed about it and sought the Lord's mind about it. And 6 different Sunday nights, we're going to have guests with us, and we're going to recognize them and express our gratitude to them for their faithfulness. The older I get, the more I realize the importance of being faithful. And I realize the impact that faithful people had on my life. And there was no doubt in my mind when I first began to think about this, I thought of Brother and Mrs. Jack Cox, who have epitomized faithfulness. In a few moments, I'm going to have them come up. Before I do, I'm going to ask Brother Josh if he would to come. And no one knows the Coxes better than Josh. He's their son, and of course, he is the pastor of a new church plant here in town, Keystone Church, over in South Durham. And I asked him to take just a couple of minutes, a few minutes tonight, and just share a testimony with us about the faithfulness of his mom and dad. You know, I said this morning, I want to be the same Rick Finley here that I am at home, and vice versa. That I don't wear this all the time, just letting you know that. But I'm talking about who I am and what I believe and how I live. And I know this. I know that's the kind of people the Coxes are. And so, Brother Josh, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here. All right.
My pastor in Baltimore, Maryland, used to say he wanted to always hire pastors' kids. And the reason he wanted to, because he said if you can make it through a pastor's home and still want to love and serve Jesus, then you're in the minority. And there's a lot of truth to that. I believe that all across this country we have pastors who are winning the world to Christ, and they're forgetting to lead their families to follow Christ. And similar to what Pastor Finley said, his desire is to be at home what he is here in the pulpit. And when you see him on a Friday afternoon with his family, it'd be similar to what you see on Sunday morning. I was able to experience that for 18 years living in the home of my parents. I was an only child, and so I am spoiled rotten. Only child, pastor's kid. I've got no hope. But every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night, I watched a man preach. And I never, even in rebellious times of my life, I never was able to sit back and go, yeah, you say that up there in front of all of them, but I know the truth. I was never able to sit back in judgment. And I believe if there's anything that I can say positively about my dad, it is that. I know my dad and was able to watch him. And then my mom right by his side. They pastored for 45 years total. In Tennessee, then in the eastern part of North Carolina, and then for 30 years right here in Durham. And to see their heart for people coming to know Christ, for people growing in grace, for people growing in the Scripture, for education with the school that was operated, for global world missions, as he took on, about 25 to 30 years ago, took on a work in India and trained at some times over 100 national pastors in the country of India, and to see that become a heartbeat of his, it was just a unique time. But all the times of leading people to Christ and seeing families changed and watching him, help people finance things for their house, and him putting a roof on the house of a church member when they were in need and didn't have the finances. I've seen him do all of those things. But what I truly enjoyed as a son was on Wednesday nights, my mom would stay for choir practice. I don't know if you have choir practice on Wednesday night. Sunday night, okay. But they used to stay for choir practice, and I used to get to ride home with my dad every Wednesday night. And as a young teenage boy, or as an upper, 5th, 6th grader and on up, I was able to have a 30-minute time with my dad. And we would talk about anything and everything. And I mean that. Anything and everything. Nothing was off limits. And he was real. As a young teenage boy that was struggling, sometimes with rebellion, looking back on it, struggling with my salvation at that point, able to really just talk to my dad and to get my dad. Not pastor, not doctor, but to get dad was truly amazing. Two different areas, places in Scripture, we see the qualifications. I like this word. You should have used this word for 45 years, of a bishop. And I think you should have gone by that title, my personal opinion. But 1 Timothy chapter 3 says, "This is a true saying, if a man desire the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, apt to teach, not given to wine, no striker, not greedy of filthy lucre, but patient, not a brawler, not covetous, one that ruleth well his own house," sorry for that, "having his children in subjection with all gravity," sorry for that, once again, on all these other ones he was 100%. "For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? Not a novice, lest being lifted up with pride he fall into the condemnation of the devil. Moreover, he must have a good report of them which are without, or those on the outside, the unsaved, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil." I can honestly tell you tonight that I've been able to, for my 36 years of my life, to be the son of someone who fits that qualification to a T. And when we look at those, when we study the lives of those men, those pastors maybe of old or even current day pastors, so many of them get tangled up and truthfully disqualify themselves. And for the last 36 years of my life, for the last 45 years of ministry for my dad, I have seen him live out 1 Timothy chapter 3. And I can think of no better testimony to my dad. Even so much that when God was calling me to pastor a church, I thought about the times when I was in high school. I thought about the times growing up where my dad would get the phone call, and you've experienced many of these phone calls at 10:30 at night, and church members being rushed to the hospital, or they just found out this happened. And I appreciate my dad every now and then. He wouldn't go by himself. When I got old enough, he'd say, "Hey, son, hop in the car. I know it's late, but hop in the car. Let's go." And I was able to watch my dad pastor. And I believe that there are some men of God who are amazing preachers. I believe there are some men of God who are amazing pastors. And I think there is a little bit of a difference there. I believe you guys are privileged, and I was privileged with my dad, and you're privileged with your pastor, to be under the leadership of the rare few that do both. That do both. And I love you, Dad, and I thank you for investing in my life. Mom, I didn't say much about you, but she can out-preach my dad. I'm being for real. And I love you both, and it's an honor to be your son. Thank you.
I'm going to ask Brother and Miss Cox to come, and Brother Josh is going to help him. It's good to have Brother Josh's wife and kids here. And we actually ran into them at lunch today. And I'm so glad they could be here tonight. We're going to take just a few minutes, and I want to read something for you, and then just chat a little bit. I told Brother Cox, I said, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to say anything. You just got to let us spoil you for a few minutes. The Coxes, and much of this, Brother Josh alluded to, but they have served the Lord in His church for 45 years. They started in Irwin, Tennessee, and then pastored in Hookerton, North Carolina, and then the last 30 years right here in our city at Liberty Baptist Church. I said to you last week, we owe a debt to them because our community is a better place because they came here. and we're not in competition with each other. We never were, and we're not today. But they're shining the light in a dark place just like we are. And the more light we have, the better off we are. And we rejoice in that. Brother Cox's vision and leadership led Liberty to multiply its attendance. He revitalized the Christian school. I got to tell this story. Brother Cox came to Liberty when I came to fellowship to serve as an assistant pastor. And my wife she put in an application, and Brother Cox hired her to teach first grade. And so she went to teacher orientation. And she came home and she said, "What have you gotten me into?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "It's a mess, Rick." She said, "One of the teachers showed up to orientation, had hair down to his shoulders." and they were brand new. I think it was their first year there. And she said, "And there's all kinds of teachers there, all different kinds of denominations." She said, "What in the world?" And I said to her, I said, just be patient. I said, it won't be that way. And literally, God used Brother Cox to revitalize that school. Through the years, we've had students there, still have students there, and we thank God for the ministry of Liberty Christian School. Brother Cox's commitment to world missions became a critical part of his ministry in the early 90s, and every year, for many years, I would hear of and read of the exploits of him and Brother Ron Christ, who's now with the Lord, going over to India and training nationals and reaching people there in India. Under Brother Cox's leadership, Liberty Baptist Church became a significant financial partner with many missionaries and church planners all around the world. And then in 2013, he retired as pastor at Liberty, and now they are faithful members at Beacon Baptist Church, where Brother Tim Rabin is the pastor, and still faithfully serving the Lord. I rarely get around Brother Rabin that he doesn't talk about what a blessing the Coxes are to him, his wife, and to the church there at Beacon Baptist Church. These are faithful people. And I amen everything that Brother Josh said a few moments ago about the faithfulness of his dad. I want to thank him publicly for being patient with me as a young pastor. And truthfully, I wasn't near as big as I thought I was. He probably doesn't remember this, but I called him one day to apologize for something that I said publicly. And it wasn't intended in mean spirit. I was trying to be funny, but after I said it, I thought, you are so stupid. But you know what? He said, Brother Finley, don't worry about that. And I want to thank you, brother. I would go places, and he would go places, and to be really honest with you, fundamental Baptists don't get along real well. And we would go places, and people would say, what about you and Jack Cox? And I said, we're friends. And that wasn't just words. That was the truth. And I so greatly admire Brother and Mrs. Jack Cox, and I so appreciate their faithfulness to the Lord and to His work, and how God has used them. Only heaven, only eternity will reveal what God has done and is doing and will continue to do through them, and the seeds that they have planted in so many people's lives. So we wanted to do just a couple of things, a few things. We have a plaque, and Brother Ken, if you'll And we'll leave we'll leave this up here so you don't have to carry it and get it to you after the service. But the plaque simply says, presented to Dr. and Mrs. Jack Cox in recognition of your 45 years of faithfulness in ministry and 30 years of selfless service to our community, Fellowship Baptist Church, January 27th, 2019. It has our logo on there for the year. And let's see. Brother Caleb, where are you at? Can you get me from up there? All right, hang on. Let's get a picture real quick. Does that work? Can we step over here? All right. Good. Go over to Hardy Street Apartments to take the next one, if you would. That would be great. And then, Miss Cox, my wife has some flowers for you, and you can keep these with you and take them back to your seat here in just a few moments. You know what? Hey, I appreciate you giving her a job, brother. I would have been in trouble. And then the last couple Wednesday nights, our folks have given in the offering, and we just have some gifts that we want to give you guys. I contacted Brother Josh and said, help me out. And he said, you guys like Bojangles. You're saved. That's good. That's good. All saved people like Bojangles, right? We've got a $100 gift card to Bojangles. All right? That's a lot of chicken. And Miss Cox, we found out you like to go to Belk.
I do.
Do you? Well, you can go and spend $100.
Thank you so much.
All right?
I will enjoy that.
And then someone said that you guys eat at Ruby Tuesday. Yeah. You like that? Yeah. All right. So here's $200 to Ruby Tuesdays. And then, do you ever go to Costco? All the time? All right, all their gas at Costco. And here's $400 to Costco. And our folks gave all that. And we love you guys and appreciate you. Let's give them a big hand, would you?
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Lord bless you, Miss Cox. Yes, ma'am. You can be seated. I'll say more about that later on. You say, man, we were able to do it a lot. I'd like somebody to do that for me. You do what they've done for the last 45 years, and we'll talk about it, okay? Ministry is